Hello, and welcome back to Pathfinder. My name is Philip, and I'm here to talk about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is part of a series I am producing covering the various deities in the Pathfinder role-playing game and its setting, the world of Golarion. Last time, I covered Callistria, elven goddess of lust, trickery, and revenge. This time, I am covering Rovagug, god of destruction, disaster, and wrath. Rovagug goes by many titles, including the Rough Beast, the Great Destroyer, the Unmaker, and the World Breaker. He is singularly dedicated to his one and only passion, destruction. His ultimate goal is simple: the complete and total annihilation of everything in the known universe. To that end, his doctrine is equally simple: destroy. Destroy without thought, hesitation, or exception. Rovagug hates all things and seeks to consume all life, and he expects his followers to be wrathful and indiscriminately vicious. His lust for total annihilation leaves no room for exception, not even for his most devout followers, or even for himself. Rovagug is rarely worshipped by mortals, but those who do choose the Rough Beast as their patron deity are generally insane. Outside of his dedicated clergy, Rovagug is mostly worshipped by lunatics and savage, disorganized tribes. Rovagug's church is disorganized and fractured, meaning there are few universal depictions from sect to sect. Several commonalities exist, however, and many other religions depict the Rough Beast in their own legends. Rovagug is most commonly depicted as a great worm-like beast, covered in countless spider-like limbs and innumerable eyes. His great maw is filled with teeth, and yet more limbs, which reach out for his prey. Rovagug has existed since the end of the Age of Creation within the Dead Vault, a demiplane forged by other gods, which exists at the metaphysical center of Golarion. The Dead Vault appears as a prison of crystallized amber, pierced by immense needles of white stone, called star towers. Rovagug himself remains still within his prison, sleeping, and awaiting the day when he will be freed. The Dead Vault can be accessed from the material plane by tunneling deep into Golarion's surface, deeper even than the greatest depths of the Darklands. Few have ever attempted to reach the Dead Vault in this way, however, as the gods placed powerful enchantments upon the plane to drive away those who would dare approach. Additionally, all those who contact the outer surface of the plane are instantly transported into the vault itself, becoming trapped with Rovagug for all time. Devout followers of Rovagug, called Rovagans or Rovagites at my table, are called to live lives devoted to destruction. They seek to lay low the achievements of others, especially those who have the audacity to worship Rovagug's enemies. They take pleasure in the devastation they bring to the lives of others, and measure success not in riches gained or territory controlled, but in the path of ruin they leave in their wake. Followers are forbidden from creating new things or bringing order to the world, so they exist primarily as scavengers, living off the works of others and taking what they need from those too weak to stop them. Formal temples of Rovagug are fairly rare, particularly in the civilized parts of the world, where the Church of Rovagug is explicitly outlawed. In these places, formal temples are practically unheard of. Even in the places more tolerant of the Church's extremely destructive teachings, such as parts of the Hold of Belkzen, temples often exist underground. They typically contain a deep pit, which serves as a representation of the Worldbreaker's prison. Temples also generally contain a fearsome, monstrous beast, captured from the local ecosystem and, quote, tamed by the temple's priests. The beast is intended to serve as a guardian for the temple, but the role of the beast might be filled by a troll, an ogre, or a similar sentient creature. Clever beasts might be able to wrest control of the temple from their priests, using their physical might to maintain power over the faithful. Given Rovagug's ban on the creation of new things, few texts have ever been written by his followers. As such, the Church of Rovagug does not have a formal sacred text. One text, the Cycle of the Beast, does exist, though it is not widely circulated among the Church. Written by the mad prophet Chalmus Cole, it details his ravings on the subject of destruction. Another piece of art, which is often seen as sacred, is the Red Mark of Zor, a blood-red spiral imbued with powerful curses. While not a text per se, the mark has been passed along to cults of Rovagug around the world, and legends claim that looking upon the spiral will drive the viewer mad. The faith of Rovagug was relatively dormant on Golarion from the end of the Age of Creation, since the Star Towers prevented the Unmaker from contacting his followers and providing them with access to divine spells. The exception to this is in the area around the Pit of Gormuz, where Rovagug's influence was able to leak onto the material plane. Since the decay of the Star Towers after the Aslanti period, however, the Rough Beast has been able to spread his influence across Golarion. The Church is actively hunted throughout most of the world, meaning it only ever takes root in secret, or in regions where the rule of law is superseded by physical might. This means that the wild places of the world serve as the centers of worship. Places like the Hold of Belkzen, the Sodden lands of Garund, the savage areas of the Darklands, and the realm of the Mammoth Lords. The faith of Rovagug is popular among orcs and half-orcs, some tribes of gnolls, now Kolo, and among boggards. Monstrous races, like trolls and ogres, are drawn to his faith as well. Among the more common humanoid races, he is worshipped by small groups of humans of both Kelid and Ulfin descent. Cosmically, Rovagug has been cut off from his fellow deities for eons, ever since his imprisonment in the Dead Vault. Even before that, though, he maintained no relationships with other gods, and always set to his own tasks with little regard for anyone beyond himself. According to the Windsong Testaments, Rovagug began his existence as one of the 8 first gods to spring into existence after Pharasma began this cycle of the universe. While the other gods set about exploring the universe and creating life, or just minding their own business, Rovagug set himself to the task of gnawing through the multiverse to create the Outer Rifts. It was during this burrowing that Rovagug came into contact with a terrible hatefulness out in the great beyond. Whether he consumed this hatefulness, or was himself consumed, is unclear. What is clear, however, is that the Rough Beast was instilled with a malevolent thirst for devastation from this point forward. As Pharasma began the cycle of life into the inner sphere, the Rough Beast took notice and abandoned his task. He scaled the spire, the infinitely tall spike upon which Pharasma makes her home, then threw himself from the side, hurtling through the outer sphere. He crashed into the elemental planes, called the Shell, and burrowed his way through, forcing his way into the inner sphere. The Unmaker then gorged himself upon 7 worlds, 7 new planets with the potential to host life. He soon discovered, however, that the taste of these worlds was unsatisfying, as he was bringing nothing to an end. He was taking no lives, destroying no buildings, bringing no great works to an end. So when the other gods unified to drive him back, the Worldbreaker gave little fight and retreated back to the Outer Rifts. Desna erected her palace, called the Sevenfold Cynosure, in memory of these lost worlds, and the gods took an oath to unite against Rovagug should he ever return. His return would be sooner than any of them could have hoped. When Asmodeus slew his brother Ehis on a long-forgotten world in the Inner Sphere, Rovagug saw his chance. In the aftermath of Asmodeus's betrayal, the Rough Beast re-entered the Inner Sphere unnoticed. He found the world where Ehis had died and consumed it, reveling in the flavors of the terror and grief he caused. When this world was consumed, and the lives of its millions of inhabitants snuffed out, Rovagug found himself even more consumed with hunger. He began hunting down more worlds to consume, and his hunt was successful. He consumed and destroyed with impunity, snuffing out lives by the billions. This unexpected flood of souls into the River of Souls had lasting effects on the gods. Apocalyptic, who had existed thus far as the impartial observer and judge, looked upon this destruction and was consumed by madness, reverting into a bestial, animalistic state. In the reaches of Abaddon, the bound prince fed upon the overflowing souls from the river, transforming him into the first horseman. And still Rovagug consumed. Finally, Sarenrae recognized the danger Rovagug posed and called an assembly. On the steps of the sevenfold cynosure, she called the gods to honor their pact. Most responded and agreed to live up to their oath, even Asmodeus himself. Their alliance birthed a plan, and together they set to work. Rovagug soon turned his attention to 3 specific worlds: Androfa, home of the androids, Golarion, and Earth. And yes, I did say Earth. Earth, our home planet, exists within the inner sphere of the Pathfinder campaign setting. Have fun with that. Anyway, Callistria, possibly aided by others who would die and be forgotten, distracted Rovagug and drew his attention to Golarion, the youngest of the 3 worlds. Pharasma directed the work of Torag and Gorum as they toiled to create the Dead Vault, while Dobral readied the Star Towers. When all was set in place, Sarenrae issued a personal challenge to Rovagug. The rough beast responded to her impudence and made to strike her down. Innumerable gods rose to fight the Worldbreaker above Golarion, including Desna, Gozra, Erastil, Apsu, and Dehak. Dozens more fought, died, and were forgotten, their sacrifice buying precious time. Finally, Sarenrae dealt a single blow to Rovagug, something which had never been done. This strike drove him into the Dead Vault, where the Dawnflower hurled the heat of the sun in after him. The gods sprung their trap, slamming the Dead Vault closed. Asmodeus locked the door with a perfect key provided by Abadar. Dobral pierced the vault with the Star Towers, stunning Rovagug and sealing his powers away. And thus, the Age of Creation came to an end. Rovagug has been trapped ever since, unable to escape his cage. However, his ability to influence the world was not gone forever. The Pit of Gormuz was the name given to the place where the surface of Golarion was sewn up after the cage was snapped shut. Sarenrae once warned her followers against settling in this place, but her warnings were tragically misinterpreted. The settlers were soon corrupted by the lingering influence of the rough beast, and slew a representative of Sarenrae sent to warn them away from their practices. In a fit of rage, Sarenrae struck the surface of Golarion with her scimitar, opening a rift to the Dead Vault. From this rift would eventually crawl the various monstrosities known collectively as the spawn of Rovagug. Each of these terrors is capable of immense destruction, though the most famous of them is the Tarrasque, who has earned the moniker the Armageddon Engine. During or after the Aslanti period, Dobral abandoned reality. His fall from grace and subsequent rise as Zon-Kuthon severely degraded the magic of the Star Towers. While the rough beast remains imprisoned, his divine influence can now directly interact with followers on Golarion's surface. Many legends and rumors exist surrounding Rovagug and his goals. Some claim that the impact of Earthfall woke him from his slumber, and that the date of his eventual escape is fast approaching. Others claim that in the end of days, Asmodeus will knowingly free Rovagug, intending to direct the rough beast to consume whatever other apocalypse is approaching. Still others say that the universe will end only when Rovagug has consumed everything except himself, Grotus, and the next survivor. At that point, the Worldbreaker's hunger will turn upon himself, leaving only Grotus, god of the apocalypse, to turn off the lights, and a single survivor to restart the cycle. Among his fellow deities, Rovagug has no known allies. Even the other evil or chaotic deities oppose or actively avoid him. He despises all life outside of himself, but hates Sarenrae above all others for having dared to strike him. When he eventually escapes from his prison, the Dawnflower will assuredly be his first target. His thirst for destruction is free of exceptions, and all gods seem to understand that no alliance would ever be possible with the World Breaker. For players who might be interested in playing characters who follow Rovagug, here are a few useful details. For those using the alignment rules, Rovagug is chaotic evil, and will accept clerics of chaotic evil or neutral evil alignment. His edicts are to destroy all things, and to free the rough beast from his prison. Conversely, to intentionally create something new, to allow your material ties to restrain you, or to delay the destruction of your victims for any reason, are all anathema to Rovagug. His holy symbol varies from cult to cult, but is typically portrayed as a fanged mouth surrounded by spider legs. His domains are air, destruction, earth, and zeal, with the alternative domains of swarm and void. The Worldbreaker's sacred colors are brown and red. These colors are relatively common among his followers, who often wear furs and leather, and just as often decorate themselves with blood, or paint meant to represent blood. Followers are forbidden from creating anything new, and so will acquire their gear from the corpses of their conquered enemies. As such, followers will basically never have coordinated uniforms, and armor and equipment will generally be piecemeal assemblies of mismatched gear acquired at different times. Formal clergy will wear masks made from wood or skulls, meant to depict destruction and monstrosity. Priests will also often dress in long, shaggy coats dyed extreme colors. Rovagug's favored weapon is the Great Axe, though it is common belief that he doesn't actually care what weapons his followers wield so long as they put them toward destructive purposes. Given the prominence of the Church in the wild areas of the world, weapons which can be picked up and wielded with relatively little training, such as clubs, spears, hammers, or axes, are very common among the faithful. Great swords and other large weapons which require two hands to wield are common as well. Few followers will wield shields, seeing them as anathema to their god's emphasis on destruction. The rough beast's favored animal is the scorpion, though he also favors worms, spiders, and vermin. All of these might serve well as familiars for PCs. Rabid animals are also favored by Rovagug, so followers might have a wide array of options regarding animal companions. A Rovagite PC might specifically infect a powerful animal, so it might turn rabid and serve as an even more destructive companion. Rovagug doesn't really have formal clergy in the same way other gods do. Even compared to other evil deities in the Core 20, Rovagug's church is scattered and hunted. Church hierarchy is entirely defined by martial might, meaning the leader of a cult is generally whichever member is the strongest. This means that the Rough Beast's church contains a high number of non-magical ranking members when compared to other major churches. Fighters, barbarians, and rangers can easily rise to power by sheer force of arms. Spellcasters who follow Rovagug are likely clerics of the War Priest doctrine. Druid followers might belong to the Wild Order, while oracles might belong to the Battle or Flames mysteries. Classes which require special training and study, such as the Wizard, the Investigator, or the Swashbuckler, are rarely, if ever, found among the followers of the Worldbreaker. Followers of any class might take feats in the Mauler archetype to further emphasize their destructive tendencies. Humans, orcs, half-orcs, and gnolls or Kolo make up the majority of Rovagug's followers, though a member of any ancestry might be drawn to the faith in extreme circumstances. Rovagug's faith generally appeals to the insane, and his influence might creep into the mind of any madman of any ancestry. Devout followers of Rovagug will destroy relentlessly and without exception. They will devote their lives to the destruction of all society and to freeing their dark god from his eternal prison. The particularly mad among them might believe that their devotion to the rough beast will spare them from his hunger, but this is a delusion. They are nihilistic avatars of chaos and wrath, and they take joy only in the devastation of the world around them. For those players looking for more character inspiration, or to homebrew some custom magic items for a follower of Rovagug, check out his first edition page on Archives of Nethys. For GMs looking to integrate Rovagug and his followers into a campaign, here are some ideas. Rovagug's herald is, of course, the Tarrasque. Called the Armageddon Engine, it is the most powerful of the heralds we've discussed by far. That said, it has been dormant in a cave under Avestan for quite some time. His divine servitors are the Thognorok Klipoths, beings who were forced into his service after feasting upon his flesh. The rough beast's imprisonment within the cage prevents him from interacting directly with his followers often, though natural disasters are said to be caused by him stirring in his sleep. Rovagug is a wildly unsympathetic character from a narrative standpoint, and is unique among the gods in his total lack of alliances or relationships with other deities. As such, he and his followers can serve as excellent unifiers for disparate groups of characters. Good-aligned PCs might be approached by characters who would normally be their enemies. Asmodeans, Kuthanites, or even Urgathoans might approach a group of PCs with the intention of working with them to destroy a local cult of Rovagug. The natural escalation of this idea would, of course, involve the spawn of Rovagug. In the face of these vicious monstrosities, members of all faiths will unite in opposition. For those of you who've read the web novel Worm, the spawn of Rovagug function much like the Endbringers, as massive society-ending threats which require such unified resistance that even villains could be allowed to step up and fight without fear of being captured afterward. If the Tarrasque appears in Andoran and is moving west, the Eagle Knights and Firebrands will be more than willing to accept aid from the Hell Knights, the armies of Taldor, and even the diabolic forces of Cheliax. On a smaller scale, it might be fun to try to integrate Rovagug and his faith into a situation where they might not normally fit, a social campaign. I'm picturing an adventure where the PCs are tasked by a city lord with tracking down a villain known only as the Arsonist. The Arsonist is an anonymous terrorist who uses either explosives or powerful magic to set fire to buildings in the city. The PCs, after much investigation, can finally discover the identity of the Arsonist, a mad nobleman who has taken up the faith of the rough beast after a particularly severe personal tragedy. The Arsonist might be an alchemist, an inventor, a kineticist, or a spellcaster, and likely has taken feats from the vigilante archetype to obscure his true intentions while he is among polite company. Alternatively, he might be a rogue who employs more technically minded followers to develop his explosives, believing that the creation of these devices is allowed under his faith so long as they only exist to cause greater destruction. So that's it. That's Rovagug, the World Breaker, the Unmaker, the Rough Beast. He is the unrivaled god of destruction, the arch-villain of the Pathfinder campaign setting, and a manifestation of total devastation. His faith is simple and dangerous, and his role in the greater cosmos even more so. Next time, I'll be covering a goddess whose role is far more complex, and whose power is nearly as unrivaled as Rovagug's. Up next is Pharasma, the goddess of birth, death, and prophecy, and the most ancient of the gods. Well, almost. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out my rules supplement Expanded Ancestries on Pathfinder Infinite. It adds over 200 new ancestry feats to the game, spread among each of the ancestries not covered by the Pathfinder 2e remaster. And be sure to like and subscribe to see more videos like this.